All right, Leanne, we are live.
Excellent. So glad to be with you in whatever time zone you're in. I'm here in San Francisco where it's a gray, rainy day, and Chad and I are going to talk about the Holy Grail of customer connection. So let's start by asking why the Holy Grail? Well, this is actually a quote someone said to me. I used to work for an agency and we built a community for their target market, not their current customer. And when he saw it, he was just blown away and said, "This is the Holy Grail of customer connection." And I said, "Thank you so much. I'm going to use that for the next few years." So here we are. I'm Leanne. As I said, I live in San Francisco. This is what San Francisco looks like from an airplane on a sunny day, not today. I work for a company called Hover. It's a startup. We don't make hoverboards. We make 3D models of your house after you take a bunch of photos and submit them to us. And this right here is my house on Hover. So this is an example of what kind of model you can get with it.
Fantastic. And my name is Chad Neufeld, and that is not a picture of me. I have not done any real physical labor in many years. So this is just, it was a nice stock photo, and I was like, Leanne, I don't want to ruin your slides, but obviously I don't want people to assume that I can build anything. My name is Chad Neufeld. I was born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So in the forefront there is the Saddle Dome. So it is a hockey arena that is the shape of a saddle, which is the most Western Canadian thing that you could possibly imagine. But I live in Calgary and I work for a company called Chaotix. We are spent the last 3 years here, most recently leading marketing at Chaotix, and we are the maker of online community software. A few of our clients are Lego and HSBC and Steel and Rust-Oleum, and very recently we joined the Benevity product family. And so Benevity is another fellow Canadian software company, and our corporate giving and volunteering products, as well as engagement tools, are used by Apple and Google and Microsoft and Nike and Atlassian and a bunch of other companies. But I'll pass it back to you, Leanne.
Excellent. So let's start by talking about why a community. So as you heard Preet say, we all know that sometimes designers and product managers and researchers can have a hard time getting access to customers when they want to do research, or maybe they can get access, it just takes a while. So the number one reason I've created communities at past roles I have had, and also now here in the current role I'm in, is because what it does is it democratizes the access to customers and the target market and users for everyone, not just the research team or not just whoever owns the panel or owns the access. And then it also basically becomes your company's own social network. Most of our companies are also leveraging private groups and public groups across different social networks that are out there. It can be helpful to own your own and have it just be about the products and services in the area that you sell to. So then what it becomes is something that anyone can test designs and ideas and messaging quickly. Sometimes we move things out to GA or out to market without testing it simply because we can't get access to people to test it with first. What a community does is gives you no reason to not just quickly test something with your target audience. And then it can also be used to recruit for events and promote content because it's your own social network. Other social networks might have other advertising or other things interrupting people's eyeballs and attention. When it's your own, you can use it for everything that you want to do. I've seen this at different companies start to engage customers more and improve brand loyalty because they have a place to go to talk to the company and to talk with other people who are using that company's products and services. So I'm going to walk you through a few examples. This is pretty common to everybody who's here at this conference. You might be a designer and have a few ideas to test. If you have a community, what you could do is share those ideas with the community in the morning and ask a few questions about them. By lunchtime, this is dependent on where you are and where your customers are, but let's just say by your lunchtime, the designer, you might have 50 responses to your questions about your ideas. You might see 18 comments in the discussion that you can then comment on and engage with people back and forth. And by end of day, have 75 responses. This will most likely make you more certain for your next day about what you want to move forward with your ideas. Or maybe you're a researcher who realizes that the company is starting to move in a new direction with the products, and you're missing information about media preferences that are important for what decisions you're going to make on your design and product teams. So in a community, you can create games, and you can create a game to gather data, but also be handing out prizes, basically engaging humans to get the information you want in a way that they want to be engaged with. So everybody likes games. Games usually capture attention better and more than polls and surveys do. This means that your community engagement will go up, which doesn't really matter for the researcher who's just trying to get information, but does matter for everybody else in the company who uses the community. You're getting the exact data you need while the people in the community are just playing a game. And everybody likes prizes. So in this case, everybody wins. Another common thing that I see is teams meeting about customer messaging. What are we going to put in the newsletter? What are we going to put in our social media channels? What are we going to post to Instagram? What are we going to put on the website? And sometimes teams are struggling for consensus. So one thing they can do if you have a community is take your messaging ideas and post a short survey to the community. What do you think of these? And then start to engage in discussion with customers or with your target market about what they think and what resonates so that you can know what to do. So here you might be spending 4 hours in meetings and have 3 conflicting ideas. You might spend 2 days engaging in comments with customers in your community, and then you have what I think will be a much happier team. So how it usually starts is that there's difficulty accessing customers. This is common across almost every company I've ever worked at and every company I've ever talked to. Sometimes, not always, design feels siloed, and often design feels left out of decision-making. And everybody usually has a desire to know more about customers. So once you get a community growing, then design can be collaborating with more people across the company who are all engaged with the customers and the target markets in the community. By doing that, design feels more appreciated, which is always my goal. And hopefully what will then happen is customer centricity matures within the company. So just in case none of you have ever seen a community before, you've seen some but not many, I'm going to walk you through some examples of what communities look like. So this is a community, as you can tell from the pictures in the upper right corner, that is about construction. It's by a company called Procore. And for each of these slides, if you want to go look at the community, I put the URL up in the upper left corner. So in this community, you have your own feed, you can post things, you can join groups and create groups, and you can ask questions. I'm pointing this out because not all communities have these sorts of activities or access. Here's a community that's about photography, and I belong to this one. And in this community, I'm primarily sent surveys, and then I earn points towards winning prizes and winning gift cards. But there isn't an opportunity in this community, like in this one, for me to engage back and forth with people, either with people at the company or with other people who do the same things that I do with photos. This one right here is one of the banks that I use, Bank of America. And when I signed up for a new account with them, they invited me to join this advisory panel. They primarily send me things that look like this, invitations for interviews, focus groups, and then similar to the one I just showed, lots of surveys. And you can see here that they like to reward me with points and prizes and chances to win things. And my panel rewards balance is at the bottom, so I can always be tracking what I have. And I can also go to a rewards overview page to see what I can get. Here's another one from a Canadian company called Damon Motorcycles. They're making electric motorcycles. And this is a really active, engaged one, like the construction one I showed you earlier. There's activities, there's discussions, there's news, and there's a lot going on here. Here's an example of an activity that shows up on in Damon's community. This is an activity that would resonate with the people who are interested in buying, like help me choose which one I want. But by doing that, it also feeds the teams at the company, the marketing team, the product and design teams who are trying to understand where are their customers' preferences. And here's one from a clothing company called ASUS. And then there's one called Dropbox Insiders for people who use the Dropbox business product. Refinery 29 has an online community with a great name called Mad Chatter. And Autodesk has a research community where you tell them which products you use, and then you get put in groups of people who use the same products as you, so that you can be feeding information back into that product and design team, and also be interacting with other people who use the same product. And you can also do it yourself and create panels. And this is a common place that most companies start. It's a place where I've started at many companies, where over here on the left, there's some sort of spreadsheet, or maybe a Google group, or back in the day, some sort of Yahoo group, where you've collected a list of people who've said yes to research, or you've collected a list of customers or users, and you use that list to send out invitations for interviews, or send out surveys, or say, like, I'm going to be in your city, I'd like to visit you. Most companies also are leveraging different sorts of social networks, either using existing groups or topic areas in those networks, or creating their own private groups or their own private Slack channels, or just, sort of like lurking in Reddit threads to see what people are saying. Another thing you can do, which is sort of like a step up from these spreadsheets over here, is you can create a panel in Qualtrics, or you can create a panel out of the panels in user testing. And then people can opt in and out of your panel in a way that they can't opt in and out of your spreadsheet. And then User Interviews has a product called Research Hub. A step up from that, in my opinion, is moving from leveraging existing social networks, keeping a panel somewhere, and keeping something in a spreadsheet, and leveling up to an actual community that you own and manage yourself. And these are just a few of the companies that offer different community platforms. I've used some of them before at different companies I've been at, or when I've been at an agency selling the building of a community to different customers. And the one I'm going to talk about today is Chaotix, because that's the platform that I'm using I used to build a community here at Hover that we just launched. And now we're starting to engage with our customers and people at the company about. And that's why I have Chad here from Chaotix. So last week on October 14th, we here at Hover launched a new community called the Hover Community. And we didn't make it all about Hover. We decided to call it a space to talk about all things home improvement, because I was thinking, like, our customers are people who use Hover plus many other products, just like most companies. Nobody uses just your product. And it would promote Hover just by existing. So the first thing we've done in the last week is we're inviting our team. So we now have about 50 to 100 of people who work at Hover in the community. And then what we're going to do is start inviting customers in. And then from there, we're going to start inviting homeowners. We're just getting started posting activities. I will show you the community and show you the first activity we posted. We're developing an activity calendar. So we'll eventually be doing something that we'll be engaging with and sharing back. But for right now, we're just monitoring it and getting it started. So I thought it would be fun to show it to you. It's right here at community.hover.to. When you're not logged in, this is what you see. So you can see that there's a poll, but if you click on it and do something, you have to create an account or sign in. And then you can see our discussion board, but you can't participate in it. And then you can see some basic things about our community and sort of the rules and guidelines we put together for it. So I'll show you what it looks like when I sign in, because this is a brand new baby community. And this is what it looks like when it just starts. So we have one activity about introduce yourself. And the reason why you see two introduce yourselves over here is because I'm a Hover team member and I can see both groups. What we've done in this community is we've created groups that people who are in the community can't see, but we as the Hover team can see. So if people at Hover who want to talk to people in the insurance industry, they would just put an activity out for them. If they just want to talk to homeowners, if they just want to talk to roofers and siders. So what you're seeing here is one, introduce yourself for people who are contractors who do exterior home improvement and also homeowners, and one, introduce yourself for people who work in insurance. And you can see we have a few entries here, so I can view them. And you can see that some homeowners have started posting pictures of something that they're proud of and then telling a story about what's in the pictures. We also have some discussion boards where we have some really basic rules, basically just be nice, don't be mean. And we've put together some topics to get started around what our customers are interested in. And then you can also, when you're here, look through all of the people who are in the community, and you can see some of them are identified as someone who's on the Hover team, and others are people who are our customers or a homeowner or someone else who's joined who's fit one of the profiles that we're looking at. So the goal of this, as you can see here, our logo's in the middle and is quite small. The goal of this is this web of people. So us to many and many to us and many to many. So it's not all about us. This is going to help us learn more about our markets and learn more about our customers. We can learn from them and teach them, and they can learn from and teach each other. And back to you, Chad.
Terrific. Okay, thank you so much, Leanne. That was wonderful. And what I want to do is I want to spend the next few minutes talking about kind of what goes on inside that community. And Leanne did a wonderful job of sharing just a few of those activities that she's starting to build in her Hover community. And I want to expand on that a little bit and show you what an engaging community experience can look like. So first, what I want to do is just spend a couple seconds on what Chaotix is. And we like to see ourselves as the platform that a brand uses to build their own kind of clubhouse, their own group of people. So we offer a private label social community, and we see it as a direct channel to really whoever you want to connect with. And so as Leanne referenced, this could be members of your team, it could be your target market, your customers, it could be folks in your industry that you really want to learn from. If you're a part of a nonprofit, it could be people who support you. There's a ton of different ways that you can use a community to connect directly to those folks. And because it's a space that you own as a brand, you get to own and control that data. And so that really, again, sets you apart, sets a community tool apart from something like Facebook or Reddit, where you really don't get any access to that data. And at Chaotix, we offer a really broad range of tools, and each tool set we've optimized for engagement. We think engagement is really key because Leanne highlighted a few examples of community platforms that really focus on surveys and some of those kind of one-way tools. And what we try and do is make things much more interactive to drive engagement. And so what engagement allows you to do, these are just a few stats from some of our customers. And Leanne used an example kind of close to this. We've heard that they are launching an activity before they leave for the day. And when they arrive back at work in the morning, they have results. Our platform allows, and most community platforms allow you to engage with groups of different sizes. And so at Chaotix, we have customers who have communities with a few hundred people, all the way up to the Legos of the world who have over 2 million people in a community built on our platform. We've heard that market research costs can be reduced by about 80% using a community built on our platform. And we've seen brands who use our tools getting to market 3 times faster than they could before. And our goal is to kind of help brands throw out that assumption that there's only kind of a few ways that they can connect with customers, like product reviews or lengthy surveys or NPS scores or maybe spammy emails. And we push clients to build real relationships with customers, because that creates so much more value for yourselves as a brand or designers, as well as for the customers themselves. When it comes to creating an engaging community experience, we really think that there's kind of 3 principles that we find dramatically increase the odds that your community is going to be a success. So number 1, it's all about defining the purpose of the community for you, but then also for your members. And so in Leanne's case, and I don't want to speak for Leanne specifically, but oftentimes the brand will have a slightly different goal for the community than the people in the community. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Rust-Oleum, one of our clients, in a little bit here. They've got a community that brings DIY lovers together to inspire one another. And that's the value that members get. There's always something fun and interesting to prompt them. When it's the weekend, they're a little bored, they want to come up with a fun project to do, they go to the creator studio, and there's always something new for them to do. From the brand side, that their purpose is really to get closer to those customers, to understand their needs, and to develop new products and to test marketing and design and labels before they go to market. So you can see those are very different purposes. It's important that you understand what the kind of the purpose for the people who are going to be in the community is, and then also what you're trying to get out of that community. What's important either way, no matter what your purpose is that you're creating value for the members before you're asking those members to create value for you. So it's one of those situations where if somebody joins a community and all you're doing is constantly asking them to fill out a survey, that's going to be a less engaging experience. That's something that they're probably not going to come back to. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is you're delivering fun, interesting, valuable information for them, or interesting things for them to do, providing valuable resources before you're asking them to do anything at all. And then finally, we advise taking an editorial approach to your community. So rather than, and Leanne mentioned this a little bit earlier about building that activity calendar, what you want to do when you're launching a community is make sure that you have a plan for the type of community that you want to have, but also the type of content that you want to have in that community, and then plan some of that out. One of the things that we advise is creating a bit of an editorial calendar. So instead of having to come up with new things to do on a regular basis, what you should try and do is establish those columns. So we know every Friday you have a certain type of thing that you launch in the community. Every Tuesday you share back something that you've learned to the community. So you develop a rhythm, and it's more likely that people are going to come back, and it makes it easier on your team. You don't have to come up with a new schedule every single week. So what I want to do is kind of take you through what it might look like. And I referenced Rust-Oleum a little bit. I want to tell a story about something that they did in their community recently. So their objective was to launch a complex product successfully. Rust-Oleum, 100-year-old paint company out of the Chicago area. They do about $1 billion worth of sale of paint every year. And they have a community that is about 15,000 members in it called the Creator Studio. And they were launching a new floor paint product. And so they came to their community manager and said, "Hey, we want to know what it's going to take for this product to be successful. What do people need? What questions do they have? Like, what's going to kind of bar people from being successful with this product?" And a survey really isn't a good way to assess that. And so what the team did was they created a research activity that was hidden inside of a creative challenge. So they challenged members of the community to renovate their guest bathroom. And the only requirement was that they use this specific type of floor paint. And the prize was, I think it was a $5,000 Visa gift card or something like that. So they launched this creative challenge. I believe 24 different submissions came in. So 24 members of their community completely renovated a bathroom in their house. They took pictures, they walked the whole community through their entire process, talked about how they used products, what products they used. And so what that allowed Rust-Oleum to do was answer a lot of those questions about, okay, what enablement things do we have to create and provide for customers to make sure they get the most out of our products, and how do we market this to those folks so they're immediately understanding how they can use this product. Another example, Leanne brought up Damon. I wanted to just quickly highlight that. They wanted to understand who their customers are. This is a brand new company with a brand new product. They're just going to market with their very first motorcycle. And they wanted to understand what other motorcycles the people that are interested in their bike already ride, because that will give them a better understanding of who their target market is and what they're interested in. And so they launched a visual storytelling activity called Show Us Your Ride. And so people are sharing stories and pictures about the bikes that they ride right now. So you can see that there's a goal for the community owner. They want to know more about their target audience. But what they're doing for their members is they're providing a fun way for members to share what they are really proud of, their bike, and to introduce the members to each other so that they can connect with one another, as Leanne mentioned, that kind of many-to-many piece. So one of the things that a community allows you to do when you own the community is really get into user segmentation. So when you own the community, you have the power to target activities and challenges like the ones that we've kind of described to specific subgroups of your community. So you can imagine you're working at Chipotle, say you're a menu designer, and you want to come up with a new kind of vegetarian menu item. And you want to create something that really resonates with vegetarians. And so what you would be able to do if you had a community filled with folks who love Chipotle or who love Tex-Mex or Southern food, you'd be able to target specific subset of those and launch an activity for those folks. And so you can see here what we're able to target within the platform is people who have more than 5 logins, for example. So we know people are coming back on a regular basis. We want to talk to people who are in California, and we want to talk to vegetarians. And so in the platform, you're able to target your activity straight to those groups. I want to leave you with one more example. As I mentioned earlier, I am now part of collaborators is a part of the Benevity product family, and so Benevity recently went into the process of building and launching a new product, and we wanted feedback on our ideas and our target market. Now, currently, we're in the process of building a community to support Benevity, but we don't have that right now. And so how do we run a research sprint today? I literally just went through this process. So this is very practical. But we sent over 100 emails and Slack messages in order to, and we involved about 40 team members internally in gathering the contact information for folks that we could reach out to. We spent about 30 hours in meetings. Many of those meetings were with unqualified contacts. We ended up doing 24 client interviews. Now, it was amazing. We got a ton of wonderful information, but it really took a lot of effort. And not all of those interviews were with qualified folks. And so while there were great conversations, they weren't necessarily with the right kind of people that we wanted to speak with. So the future state, when we launch a community, which is set to launch in December, we will we'll have, it'll be much more about the many to us to many, many to us, many to many connection that Leanne talked about. With the 700 brands that work with Benevity, we'll be able to coordinate with 1 to 2 community admins rather than about 40 colleagues. We'll be able to work with them to identify the right time to run our research project. And we'll make sure that we're having conversations with the right people. So I'm going to hand it back to Leanne to talk about a few things that we'd like you to consider when building a community.
Yes. So given what we just said, some of you might be thinking, this is probably costly and it requires many people and it takes time. And it actually isn't that costly compared with what you're doing right now already to access users and customers. And it does take some time. But if you take the time to build anything, just like any product you build or design, sometimes it starts to run itself. So I've seen communities after they've been created and required like different people to create the design elements and create the activity calendar and do everything. Once you get people in there and you've got something going on a Tuesday, Friday schedule, the community starts to self-manage itself. And if you work in B2B, like I do right now, you might feel like, oh, sales isn't going to like this. They own their customers. But what I've found at many companies and what I'm finding here is that sales is actually really enthusiastic because this gives them access to their customers in a different way. And it also gives you, if you're an account manager who manages 50 accounts, it gives you access to see what the accounts that your friend or colleague over here is also managing. This also helps reduce silos in the company that happen between product and sales and, marketing and design, whatnot. We all know this. So when we work in large companies, there's lots of silos around. When you all have one place where you democratically have access to everyone who's in your target market and you have access to each other, it just helps break down some of those silos. And then as we've been talking about, this improves your ability to get access to customers for your decision making. If you've ever had trouble Like I worked at a bank once, and it took about 4 to 6 weeks to get access to customers for research, and that's sort of an extreme case. But in other cases, it might take a week or 2 weeks, or you might find it's the same people responding to your survey every single time. This gives you access to a wider diversity of customers, and you can also segment them on the back end so you know you aren't recontacting the same people over and over again. So thank you so much, and reach out to us at these email addresses below. Find us on Slack, or find us in the messaging system, or anywhere else that Google sends you to with our names, and we'd be happy to talk with you.
I think we should have some time for some questions, I think, but I know we're running a little long. Yeah, do we have any Preet, do we have any questions from the audience? Maybe not.
Or maybe we can make up our
We don't have any. Like, I have definitely a few questions on the talk, but first of all, thank you so much. That was a really interesting talk plus case study that you walked us through, because it's definitely a topic. Again, a topic that we've not touched upon till now in the conference, but even at some of our previous events. I don't know, Madhav, if that's something that you've an idea that you've also come across at Yelp or some of the previous companies you've worked at.
Just in the sense that often when we do research, right, and start to build these sort of diaphanous relationships with people through the course of research, you sort of wonder, oh, I wish we could keep in touch with those people, right? And so
Absolutely.
it sort of starts to anticipate, or could we turn this into more of a customer relationship, customer relations kind of thing. But otherwise, the closest I've encountered, like when I worked on Firefox, we had, there was quite a large volunteer, really invested community around it, but sort of from a different, like not specifically around a user research pool.
Right.
Yeah, I like it because you kind of want to bookmark people the way you bookmark websites.
So true. And also, I think towards the end, Leanne, you and Chad were mentioning that it can seem across as also a very costly project, resource intensive project, but it doesn't have to be. So you went through the exercise, you've gone through the exercise, so you are aware of that. But when getting buy-in from the organization, from the leadership, have you seen any kind of like pushback around even pitching this whole idea for an organization that might not already have like a very curated community, or even that mindset to foster a community?
Well, I do have a biz dev and sales background, so I always try to find the problem area that's going to be solved for when I try to sell. Let's build a community. Oh, yes, and does that sound great? Okay, well, this is how much it's going to cost.
Right.
It's a classic sales technique. And it usually is. Most companies I've either consulted for or companies that I've worked in, there's just always this clear area of friction of like trying to get customer feedback or trying to access, a new market you're going after, and going through all of these hoops and different sort of roadblocks to try to get there. And I've always seen in the places that I've built a community or recommended and then helped them build a community, that it's just like tamped all that down and reduced that friction.
Very true.
One of the things that we find is that a lot of people, it's just that getting started is the tough part. So it's kind of as long as you can ensure that you're taking a broad enough view to go, this isn't a silver bullet, this isn't something that's going to solve our problems within 2 weeks, but this is something that can become the way that we engage with our customers over the long term, and we can build up this massive body of value with these people. Then it is that first, there's a bit of a hump to get over, and then everybody's like, how did we do things before this?
Right.
And you can think of it as launching a new product. Like you're going for a certain amount of engagement and usage and awareness and revenue, and you have a long-term plan, presumably. It's the same thing with the community.
Very true. Very true. I think there's also a certain amount of um, certain mi- certain kind of mindset needed when your organization is trying to build that community, because you've also seen, I think since last year, like 2019, the buzzword was AI, ML. Every company was kind of overarching, or blockchain maybe. And 2020, community became the buzzword. And as a community builder, I was starting to see all these companies on my Twitter and LinkedIn feeds start talking about community. And some that I interacted with would be so gated in terms of it was just a marketing channel under the label of a community, right? So that's why I loved, even in your talk brief, you mentioned like not just a space for the company to engage with the customers, but customers also to engage with each other. Um, have like are there kind of special tactics or approaches or things to keep in mind when trying to make sure you do not end up on the other side in terms of building that
Well, just
community?
keep humans in mind. Humans are complex. Humans like each
Mm.
other. In the case of the place where I work, I'm
Mm.
pretty sure that contractors who do exterior home improvement would love to chat with others about it. What are you doing? What tools are you using? I'm
Mm.
a homeowner. I know that as a homeowner,
Mm.
I'm always asking my neighbors, who do you know who does
Right.
this? How do I get this done? And there's lots of places that exist for that. I love that the company I work for, who's in this space and is a startup, is like, let's create a place for people to do this. Yet another place, because some of these places
Mm.
already exist, but a place where we can learn from it.
Mm.
I think the other thing too is to, again, not be too transactional about every single thing that you're doing. And so
Yeah.
sometimes some of the community managers in Rust-Oleum, for example, or Steel or Dremel or some of these other communities built on our platform, they'll come up with activities that don't really have any other business objective than being really fun for the people in the community. And so when people don't feel like they're constantly just kind of being mined for their data, but instead they're like, yeah, I don't have any idea why Dremel asked me to do this. But like, this is a fun project and I didn't have anything
Mhm.
else to do on the Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to jump into
Mhm.
it. And that there is a business objective to that because it brings people back and it increases loyalty. But at the end of the day, it's sometimes just a really fun thing to do. And I think that really helps people feel like they're not just a number.
So true. So true. Yeah, as a community builder, I super enjoy these conversations. Could really dig into them more and more, because again, it's a topic really close to my heart as well. But we have a few questions coming in, so um,
Bring them on.
yes, Madhav, any that
I
you'd
can
like
read one
to bring up first?
for sure. The one that just came in from Jenny is I often hear arguments against compensating or incentivizing research activities. How do you decide when it's right to incentivize, and then how would you address opposition?
I have 800 million answers to that, but I'll give you two. One thing I like about communities is people are there for their own reason, and so it's implicit incentives. You don't usually have to pay out as much. But I like to surprise people. So we created a community on Chaotix about a year ago for another company when I was at an agency. And what we did is we'd surprise people who we saw being really engaged and just send them gift cards and send them surprises. And I like that sort of thing. I do like when you're doing research with a target market who's not your customers to be like, I value your time, I'm giving you this for it. But when you work in B2B like I do, sometimes you're not supposed to give gift cards to customers. And sometimes it's more important that the customer is talking to you because they're going to inform design or product. And it's sort of like a back and forth engagement. And you don't need to give them more than, a t-shirt or a baseball hat to get them to engage.
So true. So true. I think again goes back to the thing you were saying earlier. Like you're again dealing with humans on the other end. So sometimes the reward doesn't have to be a gift card. Sometimes you just want to be heard. Um,
Yeah. And you can gamify it too, because we all love games.
very
Yeah.
true. Very true. I get one of my pet peeves is when you are on some of these platforms, or when I'm selecting like live streaming platforms and things like that. There would be no human to interact with me. There would be a bot that'll be super frustrating to deal with. But then at the end, they'll send me a long survey. Like, how was your experience? I was like, really? You want me to give you feedback? Like,
Let me tell you about my experience with
yeah,
your bot.
yeah. Austin has a really interesting and really good question. Are there legal hurdles to consider when you are fostering a community and posting kind of in progress work, unreleased feature ideas or designs?
Yeah, I can take that one. It's definitely something that comes up on a pretty regular basis. And so there's a few different ways to manage that. Number one, you want to make sure that, again, you have control of the data. And we have, at least with our platform, we're GDPR and CCPA compliant, so people can get their data back whenever they choose to. And then, so people are agreeing to the terms and conditions. So that's something that a legal team typically works on. And then what you can do is you can actually ensure people are signing NDAs before they're let into certain types of activities. So that was something that we did with Dremel recently. They're working on a new drill product. They wanted their community to be involved in that process, but their team was like, this is stuff that is not in the market yet. We need people to sign an NDA before they get involved. And so that was a process that they went through in the community. People signed up to participate through that sign up process. They've completed that NDA. And so, of course, there's still some risk that people will take screenshots or not honor the NDA. But at the end of the day, like, if somebody really wanted to do that kind of corporate espionage, they're going to do it anyways. And I think the benefit of involving real human beings in your processes far outweighs the risk of one of your competitors coming in. And then if you own the platform, again, you have the ability to see like, oh, okay, somebody from my competitors signed up for this. I'm just going to say like, no, that person isn't allowed in the community. And you have the ability to kind of screen people that way as well.
Yeah, you can think of it if you're already doing research similar to how you do research on things that are in alpha or beta or other pre-release product steps where you take precautions. You do the same thing in the community. Yeah. And then when you see your competitor sign up to interview with you about your alpha, you're like, no, I found you. Good try.
There's another one here from Eli. If a company wanted to put together a community, what's a reasonable timeline for getting one up and running? I know, Leanne, you mentioned that or one of you said that it's easier than you think. But what's a ballpark timeline?
I think we got ours up and running in 6 weeks, but it can take longer than that because it depends on who you have to work with inside your company, just like anything else. Like, before anything goes public, do I need brand to sign off? Do I need marketing to sign off? Is there somebody else who needs to sign off? Like all your internal approvals. I have created communities before where it took like 4 months to get it off the ground. But this most recent one, I was really pleasantly surprised. It also happened at a really perfect time because I joined this startup. They had just gotten their brand guidelines done. And I was like, this is so perfect. We have exactly what we need to make sure it's brand compliant when we go to launch. But all of you have worked at different companies. It depends how long it takes to say like something that's out in the public needs to have the right colors and the right look and feel and the right tone in the words and everything. So it depends where you are.
Very true. I was going to say that's all, but Leo asked an excellent question. So I think let's sneak that in as our last question of this conversation. Leo's asking, how do you deal with fanboys? So most of the community participants are really engaged with the product, with the brand or product service, especially like fanboys. So how do you filter out, the kind of folks that are really excited and might even kind of bias the feedback that you're looking for?
That is an awesome question. We certainly so there's kind of the 99-1 ratio with community building typically. So you've got your 90% of people who are in the community are there to like observe and learn. You've got 9% who are there to like react and contribute to somebody else's idea or comment on something. And you have 1% of the community that is like driving the vast majority of the content. And so what you want to do is you really want to nurture and encourage those people. You could call them fanboys, absolutely. But you want to make sure that those people who are really engaged you don't want to alienate those people because they are constantly creating awesome content for your community, but at the same time, you don't want that throwing off your research. So one of the things that you can do, again, when you have the powers to kind of segment that research, is you can create groups. So there might be like a super user group. Maybe they even get a badge and people are really proud about that. But if you want to do some research and you want to make sure that it's objective and you don't want to have to kind of filter out that, you can just target that research for everybody except for the super users. So they don't participate in that activity or that research, and you get a kind of more maybe a more typical batch of feedback. So that would be one way that you could absolutely do it.
And that's one thing I like about Chaotix and some of these other community platforms, is those fanboys have no idea you excluded them from something. Everybody's having their own experience in your community based on how you segmented them. So when they log in, they see certain things. And so then nobody's feelings are hurt, which is what you don't want to do with the people who are like your really engaged fans.
So true. That 1991 kind of framework or the ratio benchmark is really neat. I'd never heard of it, and so as a community builder, that kind of makes me less stressful because you always see the larger number of your community. And you're like, why aren't people interacting so much? So it's like, okay, now I'll keep the 1991 in mind.
Awesome.
Look through that lens. Well, that was really, really incredible. Thank you so much, Chad and Leanne.
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you. It was quite a different topic, one that we don't hear about often, and also, again, a topic that's close to my heart around community building. So really glad we got to nerd out a little around it. Thank you so much.
Thank
and see you tomorrow for the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Take care.
Bye.